it's fortuitous that today's gospel is the Transfiguration. And the importance of the Transfiguration, of course, is that it talks about rising from the dead, and it actually gives us a preview of the resurrected body of Christ. Jesus gives Peter, James and John a sneak preview of coming attractions after the resurrection. He gives it to them to encourage them and to inspire them, and for them to know that when things get their darkest, there is light after death. And so it's really important to understand the purpose of this Transfiguration event, of what it does for the morale of Peter, James and John, and of how it steadies them through the dark days of the Passion and the death of Jesus. It also reinforces for us our faith and belief that Jesus Christ is true God and true man. He's the only begotten Son of God, and that's where he gets his divine nature from. But he's also born of the Virgin Mary, and that's where he gets his human nature from. Jesus is very much God and man, true God and true man. He is God incarnate, enfleshed in real flesh, a real body. Now that's important for us. It's important that we understand this. A few weeks ago they announced the Australian of the Year, and it's Taryn Brumford was announced as the Australian of the Year. Taryn's noted for a number of books in her campaign about body image. In fact, she says that the relationship with our bodies results from learned behaviour. And a lot of the discomfort and disconnect that we have with our bodies and our body image is learned behaviour. We weren't born into the world hating our body, she points out, and she's right. It's the world that has developed this idea that there are some bodies that are beautiful and some that aren't. Our society teaches and influences our children to have negative thoughts about their bodies. Hence the importance of her campaign to embrace who we are physically. Now, how can we help? Well, we've got a really important role to play as knights and as Catholics in our community. But before I tell you what we're going to do, let's go back a little bit to the 3rd century, and particularly to the Gnostics. The Gnostic heresy was a heresy that thought salvation came through knowledge, that if you know stuff, then that's enough. You just have to know. You don't have to do, just know. Knowledge based on personal perception is quite sufficient, because the spirit is all that matters. Physical body just, well, that's a nuisance, it's a problem, it's a difficulty, it gets in the way, it's annoying, it's a temptation, it's a source of sin, whatever. Gnostics lived this sort of spiritual religion. It wasn't Christian. They thought it was, but it wasn't Christian. Today we've got a new Gnostic movement called the gender identity movement. It's a Gnosticism, basically. It says the real you isn't your physical body or your physical nature. The real you is who you would like to be or imagine yourself to be. It's how you feel you might be. So forget what indications your physical body might be giving to you. You can be whoever you want to be. And they use gender, of course, because if they use sex, then everyone's going to say, well, the science says that there are male and female. And you're saying that there's more than that. Well, ignore the science. Yeah, just ignore the science. I mean, the science used to tell us that gender was assigned at conception and observed at birth. So from the time we are conceived, then we are configured either male or female. With some aberrations some places, but but mostly male or female, and the identity is the number of chromosomes, how they count those, and there are very clear indication. Now, we're told that gender must be considered fluid, and governments are legislating for that sort of thing. They're saying we must consider gender to be fluid. It's quite strange, you see, because now a person's identity is cut off from who they physically are. And I can imagine that that's because some people were unhappy or unsatisfied with the physical body that they had, and so they would have preferred something else. But this too is a learned behaviour. You weren't born into the world with this. Murray Campbell, who writes a very good blog, he's the pastor at Mentone Baptist Church, said in his blog the other day, 34% of 18 to 24-year-olds no longer believe they are heterosexual embodied beings attracted to the opposite sex, but rather they are spread across an imprecise and growing spectrum of self-defining and often bodily denying sexuality and gender. And they think that way because that's what the government's telling them to do. Here's where our faith comes in. In the letter to the Hebrews, we heard John reading from the Hebrews letter earlier, but in the letter to the Hebrews it's pointed out, since therefore the children share flesh and blood, he himself likewise shared the same things, so that through death he might destroy the one who has power of death, that is, the devil. Jesus' incarnation is the key to solving this conundrum of a society that's moved into a new Gnosticism. Understanding clearly what's happening, Jesus saves us from this problem. Our challenge, of course, is that those living with this discomfort or disconnect with their bodies, they need our care and our love, not our condemnation and our hatred. But they also need our kindness, not our complicity with this dehumanising project that takes the physicalness away from people and pretends to tell them that only what they think matters. We are human. We are body, mind and spirit, not just the bits we like. We're all of it. And we need to understand and give thanks to God for who we are. We need to accept the gift of our body and acknowledge that Christianity is a physical faith. Our sacraments are physical. We don't just say prayers and sing songs. We touch the bread and the wine that becomes the body and blood of Christ. We are washed with water that flows across our bodies when we are baptized. We have a physical faith. So we should care for the physical needs of others. And we should love the body that God gave us. And learn to love the body that God gave us. And accept that. And that means respecting it. It also means not abusing it, but taking care of it. It means giving thanks to the Creator by honouring the gifts that we've received in creation. And remembering that this body will be resurrected. The resurrection of the body means that we get our body risen like the Lord. Like James and Peter and John saw at the Transfiguration. So, the challenge is up. Are we ready for it?